With summer rapidly approaching, you might be considering buying a new golf watch for 2023. And with the current rises of living costs, as well as the general bleak economic outlook around the world, you might be considering a more budget-friendly option. So to help you make the right choice, I've got 7 of the most popular golf watches for under £200 right here. Now I've used all of these out on the golf course, so I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly on all of these watches. And at the end, I'll even let you know which one I think is the overall best option. I've scored each of them in 4 separate categories: value for money, style and design, usability, and golf functionality. Now, if you decide that you want to buy any of these watches for yourself, or perhaps as a gift for someone else, then I've included my affiliate links down in the description below, along with any discounts that I've currently got, so you can pick any of these watches up for less than retail price. So which watches are we comparing in this video today? Starting off, we've got the Bushnell Ion Edge, the ShotScope V3, then we've got the Garmin Approach S12, the Voicecaddy G3, the Skycaddy LX2, the AimBuddy W11, and then the Bushnell Ion Elite. So if you want a more detailed, in-depth review of any of them, then I'll include the links of those down in the description below. So let's start with topic number 1, style and design. For some of you, style won't matter at all, and you'll only really care about the golf functionality and the usability. But for others, including myself, you're going to really care about what the watch actually looks like on your wrist, especially if you're going to be wearing it both on and off the golf course. In last place, we've got the Voicecaddy G3, by far the biggest of all the watches that we're comparing here today. It's got a pretty basic LCD screen. It just looks like a watch from the early 90s, to be honest. You've got 5 buttons on it as well, and they're all just kind of soft and squishy. There's no satisfying click. Scoring 2 points is the Bushnell Ion Edge. This is the entry-level Bushnell. You can see here that, again, it's got this standard kind of black and white LCD display. And again, it's a very kind of plasticky case. This one is a touchscreen, but we'll come on to more about that in the usability section of the video. And you've got this single orange button on the side that has a bit more of a click. The strap is actually quite nice and smooth. It's quite thick and chunky as a watch, but nowhere near as thick as the G3. But personally, I wouldn't be overly keen to wear this too much off of the golf course, and it's not a particularly stylish looking watch. Next up is the ShotScope V3. The ShotScope has a slightly thinner form factor compared to the previous 2 watches, but it is this very kind of square, boxy design. And it's not just a simple black and white screen, but it's certainly not really a colour screen either. You just have this kind of blue background on it. And then you've got the 4 buttons for navigation and selection, so there's no touchscreen element on this watch. The strap is pretty thick and it is very, very grippy, although it is a bit of a dirt and dust magnet. One other small note with this one is that the buckle is the other way round compared to, well, the traditional design for watches, and that's to do with the sensors that are built into this watch, which we'll come on to more in a little bit, but it can make it a little bit tricky to put on and off. Next up is the Garmin S12, the entry level in the Garmin Approach range. Now this is a very basic black and white LCD display, and there's no backlight to it either. However, that hasn't necessarily been a problem out on the golf course. It just means that if you're using this off the course in the dark, well, you're not going to be able to tell the time. It does feel very lightweight compared to these other watches, but it has got a nice slim design to it, so it sits quite nicely on my wrist. There's no touchscreen on this. Again, you've just got the 4 buttons on the outside for navigation and selection. And again, they've got quite a nice click to them. The build quality of this watch feels a little bit nicer compared to the watches we've looked at so far, in my opinion. And while I wouldn't be going out of my way to wear this watch off the course, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I had to. So in third place is the GolfBuddy W11. You're now getting a colour touchscreen display with this watch, with the single button on the side for selection as well. And what you also get with this is a ceramic bezel. So you've got a few different watch faces to choose from. While none of them are particularly great looking, at least you've got the choice there, and you can kind of go for a more digital or an analog style. And it's nice to have a little bit of colour display on the watch. You also get a choice of 2 watch straps. It is a pretty chunky looking watch as well, where it sits on the wrist, but compared to the rest so far, you're getting something which looks a little bit more premium now. Coming in second is the Skycaddy LX2. Now with this watch here, you're getting 2 buttons on the side, but you are also getting a touch screen as well. And actually, if I take off my Apple Watch, which I've got on my wrist now, you're starting to get a little bit more of a design that looks something a little bit like an Apple Watch. Maybe I'm being a little bit generous to it, but it looks a little bit more traditional in its stylings as a watch that you could wear on and off the course. It is still pretty chunky there. So in this budget category, it really depends upon personal styling and design. The strap feels pretty nice quality and is actually pretty slim. And it's nice that for this price range of watch, you are now getting a color touchscreen watch. And winning this category is the Bushnell Ion Elite. You've got here a full color touchscreen display on this watch, similar to the W11. And you've also got a ceramic bezel in this watch too, again similar to the W11, but in terms of the actual execution, I think this one is just the better than the rest of these watches, and this is the one personally that I feel most comfortable wearing off the course as well as on. The bezel itself has got some nice little detailing dots around the outside of it. The watch strap is a nice size and it feels pretty good quality as well, and the actual case itself feels the least plasticky of the lot of them. As well as being touchscreen, you've also got the selection button on the outside. It's got a nice bit of texturing on it as well. So congratulations to the Bushnell Ion Elite. You win this round. Now, if you are finding this video helpful, then please make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the channel, because I'm trying to provide a whole range of helpful golf content for normal golfers like you and me. The next category is usability. So I've considered actually how you use the watch on the course, off the course, what it's like in terms of the input, the responsiveness, and generally how nice it is to use. In last place is the Bushnell Ion Edge. A little bit surprised at this one, given that Bushnell is one of the more premium names. However, the reason why it's coming in at last place is that I just couldn't really get on with the touchscreen functionality when combined with this LCD display. The touchscreen is, well, can be a little bit too sensitive at times. And also, when you scroll, it jumps down a page. So when you have 3 options on display, when you scroll down, you then get the next 3 options. It doesn't just scroll as you would expect, slowly cycling through those options that you've got to select. Scoring 2 points is the Skycaddy G3. Now, this watch only has the 5 buttons to use. And so with 5 buttons, you think you've got plenty of options and ways to navigate with this watch. However, the buttons just feel soft and squishy. The menu layout and design of the information just being displayed as well isn't necessarily the clearest. I found it just a little bit awkward to navigate and use while I was out on the course. Next up, scoring 3 points, is the Skycaddy LX2. It's a little bit of a similar story to the Bushnell Ion Edge in that the touchscreen functionality can be a little bit sensitive, can be a little bit tricky to use. As a positive with this watch, you do then have 2 buttons on the side, which are good for helping you to select options or go back. There are some usability options that I do quite like with this watch. For example, when you're out on the course, you can simply tap the top and it scrolls through a selection of kind of quick information to display, including the battery life, the steps, last shot information, and that kind of details. It can be just a little bit tricky and fiddly to use that touchscreen and navigate the menus at times, especially given that this is probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest, screen on display. Scoring 4 points is the Golf Buddy W11. As I mentioned, this is a full color touchscreen display with a little button on the side to use to go back in the menus. I found the menus and the layout very easy to navigate. All the information was clearly displayed, and the scroll functionality works as expected. The watch can get a little bit slow and laggy out on the course, especially when looking at the total whole overview and zooming in to get a little bit more information. In third place is the ShotScope V3. Now, in terms of looking at the watch and the information it displays, I think it's nice and clear. ShotScope have designed a good user interface. It's nice and simple to use. And I really like the fact that you haven't got to worry about touchscreens or buttons. You've just got 4 clear buttons and they're always clearly marked in terms of what each one does, whether the bottom 2 are for navigation, top right is for selection, top left is to go back. And when you're out on the course as well, I actually got on pretty well with this watch in terms of the information that I really needed to know. It does start to get a little bit tricky and unclear when you need to start worrying about entering provisional shots or lost balls. But that's not necessarily a fault of the usability and design of the watch. That's just because this watch can do some pretty complex things with shot tagging and registering that the other watches in this group of comparison just cannot do. So I'm not going to mark it down too strongly for that. In second place is the Bushnell Ion Elite. I actually really quite like the way that the menus are laid out with this watch, and the fact that the touchscreen is, I would say, a much better experience compared to the entry-level Bushnell Ion Edge. The screen is nice and bright, and you have a good control over the brightness settings on the watch as well. And when you're out on the course, I didn't really have any issues using the watch and the navigation. I actually really like the golf home screen setting because everything that you really want is effectively one click away with this watch. It's quite a unique design in the way that it's laid out, but personally I got on with it really well and I found it really easy and simple to use. And scoring top marks for usability is the Garmin Approach S12. Yes, this is one of the most simplest layouts compared to all the rest of these watches. It doesn't have a touchscreen, it has the simple 4 buttons on the side, but Garmin have just done a really good job in terms of the menus and the design and the layout. It just means this watch is really simple and intuitive to use. The watch as well is really responsive. You get a satisfying click with the buttons. What more could you want for in terms of usability? Top marks to the Garmin Approach S12. Next up is golf functionality. Now, probably the most important element of a GPS golf watch is how accurate the yardages are. So I took all of these golf watches out onto the golf course at the same time, and I conducted a very simple test by comparing their yardages to the middle of the green with a Bushnell Tour V5 laser rangefinder. Now you can see here from my very technical and expensive rig that I created for this highly scientific test that there was only about 7 yards difference across all of these watches. With the flag being 158 yards, you had a range of being 3 or 4 yards shorter or 3 or 4 yards longer. So I feel that's a pretty good showing for all of these watches. And if that level of variation concerns you, then a GPS golf watch, no matter the budget and price range, probably isn't going to be for you, and you're going to want to stick with a laser rangefinder instead. Coming in at last place is the Skycaddy G3. Starting to become a bit of a theme with this watch, I'm afraid. In terms of golf functionality, I would say that this has the least out of the whole range of these watches. My main gripe with this watch is that for some reason it doesn't show yardages to hazards. It just shows the front, middle and back to the green. Unless that's a feature that I can't work out how to use, and in which case it rightly got a very low score in the usability category, I just don't think this shows hazards. That is functionality that should just come as standard in a golf watch. This doesn't have any kind of vibrate functionality in it to remind you to input your score into the watch. If I remember rightly, it didn't even actually automatically jump to the score input screen when you get to a hole. You have to hold down a button. And even then, when you do input the score, this watch doesn't have any Bluetooth on it at all. So to get your scorecard information off of the watch, you have to connect it via the USB charging cable to a computer and download an application on your computer. There's no app on your phone that you can then transfer the information across. That's just pretty simple core golf functionality that a golf watch, I think, should have. Next up is the Bushnell Ion Edge. Now, being the cheapest of all of these watches, I can forgive it, to be fair, for not having necessarily the most golf functionality in this watch. It has all of the essential information really that you would want. So simple yardages to the front, middle and back of the green, gives you information to hazards, as well as being able to track the distance of your last shot. And you can record your scores in the watch and then get them off of the watch via Bluetooth to the Bushnell app on your smartphone. So all pretty fundamental core features that I think should be included in a golf watch. It doesn't score any higher on this list because, well, that's pretty much it. There's nothing additional that this watch is offering you compared to the rest of the watches that have scored higher. Similarly, scoring 3 points is the Garmin Approach S12. Again, in terms of core golf functionality, you've got everything you could possibly want in this watch. Yardages to hazards, front, middle and back, as well as the ability to enter your scores and then export them via Bluetooth onto the app on your smartphone. The key element that the Garmin S12 has got over the Bushnell is that the battery life on the Garmin S12 is epic. It far surpasses any of these watches on display because of this pretty simple LCD screen design and layout. When testing this watch, I actually got 30 days use of it on a single charge without actually using it on the golf course. If I did use it on the golf course, then you still got an incredible amount of battery life from this watch. Scoring 4 points is the Golf Buddy W11. This is a significant step up in terms of the actual functionality on offer. This watch is now giving you a full whole layout, which you can zoom in on and then select specific points using the touchscreen to get yardages to that exact location. And this watch hasn't scored higher because actually it lets itself down in a few places as well, I feel. For example, although you can enter your scores on the watch, you cannot get that information off of the watch. That's pretty core functionality that I want in a GPS golf watch, and so I've had to mark it down a little bit for that. On separate occasions, it was telling me that there were no hazards on a hole, even though I could clearly see that there were hazards right in front of me, whether they were bunkers or lakes. In fact, on one occasion, I could actually see the hazard on the whole view layout, and yet it still didn't tell me that there was one there when I went into the hazard mode. In third place is the Skycaddy LX2. Now, a key feature when it comes to Skycaddy is that they have a dedicated team of staff who are going out and walking golf courses and getting very accurate and specific detailed mapping information which they use on their watches. So that's proprietary information that none of these other watches benefit from. You're getting your distances to the front, middle and back of the greens. You're getting the ability to get the distances to as well as to carry hazards. And you're getting the ability to export your scorecards via Bluetooth onto an app or onto a system. If you are entering your scores, then it does pop up when you finish a hole to remind you to enter your scores for that hole. So that's a really good feature that I like to see on any golf watch, and surprisingly isn't on all of these. And you can even track the specific yardage detail for each of your clubs if you want to. However, that being said, it's not the simplest system to use. Found it a little bit too fiddly. Now with Skycaddy, you do have the ability to purchase an additional subscription with the watch. For a 3-year subscription, it will cost you £79. And then that locks some additional features with the watch. The key one being that you can get a total whole layout view as well. With the Golf Buddy W11, that comes as standard. You don't have to pay a subscription for it. And it also comes as standard with the Bushnell Ion Elite. Moving around the whole overview, and if you want to move the flag on the green, is one of the smoothest watches to use of this whole comparison here. In second place is the Bushnell Ion Elite. This is a pretty fully loaded golf watch in what is a budget category. Not only do you get the core standard information that you expect, it is nicely laid out on a simple home screen. What's a great feature of this is that you get a full whole layout option. You're also getting the ability to enter your scorecard information, and then it's nice and easy to send that across via Bluetooth to the Bushnell app on your smartphone. I think this is the only watch in this comparison as well that gives you the ability to get notifications from your smartphone. It's not necessarily perfect. For example, it only shows you the distances to hazards. It doesn't show you the distance to carry those hazards. And when you get to the end of a hole, it doesn't automatically jump you to the enter scorecard screen. You have to remember to press the button to enter your scores. Otherwise, when you go to the next tee box, it's jumped you onto the next hole. But the winner of the golf functionality category is the ShotScope V3. Not only does this come with all of the core golf functionality that you'd expect in terms of yardages to the front, middle and back of the green, as well as the yardages to hazards, as well as to carry them as well, and the ability to track the distance of your last shot. What this watch is giving you that none of the others do is very, very detailed information that can really help you improve as a golfer. Now, the way it's doing that is by giving you 16 tags that attach into the end of your golf clubs. So then when you hit your shots, the watch is registering which club you are using to hit that shot. Now, at the end of the round, what you then do is transfer all that data from the watch onto the ShotScope app on your smartphone, and then you've got a whole host of information that builds up over time. Now, as I've mentioned in my full review of this watch, the actual system to use to get all that information and to make it accurate is a little bit fiddly. You have to do a fair amount of editing after every round to make sure that it has correctly picked up all of the shots that you want to track. And keeping score on the watch, again, can be a little bit fiddly. But in terms of the actual golf functionality of this watch, this is just offering you an incredible amount of data in the box with no additional service plans or no additional purchases necessary. So with those three categories out of the way, let's talk about the final one, which is value for money, because that's going to factor in all the information so far, as well as how much these watches actually cost. In last place, you've probably guessed it, is the Skycaddy G3. This retails for £190 and I managed to buy it for around £150 on Amazon, but even for that reduced price, you're just not getting a lot of golf watch for the money that you're spending. To be honest, I can't really recommend buying this watch over any of the others in pretty much any circumstance. Sorry, Skycaddy. Next up is the Garmin S12. Now, while I really like the functionality and the use of this golf watch, as well as its slim, lightweight design and its incredible battery life, it is one of the more expensive watches in this list. It retails for £170 and I did manage to buy it previously for around £150 in a sale, although you don't often see it for much cheaper than that. Scoring 3 points is the Golf Buddy W11. Now this retails for £250, although I've always seen it on sale for as low as around £150 and pretty much always below £200. On paper, it looks like you're getting a lot of watch for that money, especially if you get it for around £150. Colour touchscreen display, ceramic bezel, full hole layout. It sounds good on paper, but when you actually get to using this watch in terms of the functionality, well, it has its drawbacks as I've explained, which is why I've rated it kind of middle of the road in terms of value for money. If you have to pay full price for this watch, then value for money, I'd actually score it a lot lower. Next up is the Skycaddy LX2. You're getting a lot of functionality as well as a colour touchscreen display on the watch, but it retails for £190, although I did manage to buy it in a sale for £150. So you are kind of paying for that extra functionality. The price probably feels about right for where it's positioned. But don't forget, if you want to unlock the full potential of this watch, then you've got to spend additional money on an annual subscription. So in third place is the Bushnell Ion Edge. This is the cheapest of all of these watches available. It retails for £170, but I actually picked this up in the sale for £100, and I've seen it at that price quite a few times. So you are getting a good amount of golf functionality. However, it comes with a pretty basic screen. It is pretty plasticky in its casing. In second place is the Bushnell Ion Elite, and it's coming in at £200. So I appreciate that it is the most expensive of all of these watches in the comparison, but you're getting the most amount of tech with the best quality and the best looking watch. So when you compare it to other watches that are more expensive than this watch, you actually are getting, I think, pretty good value for money if you're happy to spend that £200 price point. And that means that the winner of value for money is the ShotScope V3. As I mentioned before, you're getting all of the core golf functionality that you could possibly want, as well as that plethora of information that you are getting from the golf tags, which come included in the price. Now it retails for around £200, but you can often get this on discount, and I actually seen it for as low as £120 recently. So if you can get this for a good discounted price, to be honest, I think it just blows everything else out of the water when it comes to value for money. So in terms of the overall total scores, for me, in third place is the Skycaddy LX2, in second place is the ShotScope V3, and the overall winner of this under £200 budget comparison is the Bushnell Ion Elite. If you want more in-depth information about any of these watches, as well as links and discounts to hopefully buy them for less than retail price, I've included all that information down in the description below. So let me know down in the comments below which of these golf watches would be the one that you would want to buy. Smash the like button if you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with all my latest content. And if after watching this video you're thinking that you might want to spend a little bit more money on a golf watch, then why not check out my full reviews of either the Garmin S42 or the Garmin S62 golf watches.